this is the second time we've had Joseph here to speak with us. This is almost our 100th event. I should have counted because it's like either 98, 99, or it is 100.
Let's call it 100.
Let's call it 100, and then whoever is actually 100 will be disappointed. But right around there. So we're coming up on 5 years and 100 events, and I'm really excited to have you here. So Joseph, I won't take any time away from your speech. Please go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming. I know most of you. Recently, I was invited last month to the World Congress United Nations meeting just north of Fukushima. And the location, I think, was not by luck. They wanted to show the world that they're doing something when they're not really doing anything. And so today, I'm going to give a talk. I'm going to talk about 3 things. A brief history of nuclear power and atomic age, my experiences in Fukushima, truth from fiction, what I saw, what I heard, what I read, and then lessons and opportunities for Taiwan, like how urgent it is for Taiwan to really learn what's going on over there and why. It's just not a matter of if, but a matter of when, that something just as bad, if not worse than Fukushima is going to happen here to us and our beloved Taiwan. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm born and raised in Kobe, Japan, and disaster is close to my heart because my grandma was crushed in her old home in Kobe, Japan during the big earthquake. So I know what it's like to lose family with disasters. When I was 17, I went to university in America and then became a plastic reconstructive surgeon, doing everything from reconstruction of the whole body, from car accidents, cancers, to little children with all kinds of deformities. So in that way, I'm also very close to children's rights and standing up for children who are abandoned or helpless. That's what Megan do, and I do. I've been doing it for over 20 years, going all over the world, over 150 countries now, going all over the world, wherever I need to go to help the most helpless children. We'll just find them and do whatever we need to help them. You can go to our website, helpinghelplesschildren.org, and it'll show you some projects we do. And other than that, I give talks all over, UN, to governments, local universities, Academia Sinica. I want you to meet a friend of ours. This is Koko Kondo. Koko Kondo is the youngest Hiroshima bomb survivor. That means she's 70 years old this year because 1945, August 6th. And you can see how small she is. She's sterile and she stopped growing because it's very common after a nuclear blast. So she's tiny and she takes care of orphans in my hometown, Kobe. So she's an inspiration to me. And very pertinent because her home looked like this one day, and the next day, Hiroshima looked like this. And you know what unbelievable, horrendous power of death energy. And if you'll take a look at these 2 blasts, this little blast on the bottom left is Hiroshima bomb with 15,000 tons of TNT. Today, the average nuclear warhead and the average nuclear reactor, including those in Taiwan, is 1,000 times the size and the power of one Hiroshima bomb. So right now in Taiwan we have 6 active nuclear reactors, 2 mothballed but can be activated quite quickly. So we have 6 that can blow up, each one being 1,000 times of Hiroshima. So the level of destruction and horror is just beyond our imagination, the potential is. So when a nuclear plant blows up, it's much worse than a nuclear bomb. Because a nuclear bomb is just boom, one time, massive exposure, and then dissipates. But a nuclear plant is a gift that keeps on giving and giving and giving every day. And until it's stopped. In Fukushima case, the government and TEPCO, the company running it, which is a Thai power here, refused help from the outside world. There's engineers and experts that could probably solve this within a year, but nothing has happened in 4 years. And they say, well, maybe in 10 to 40 years we'll find a solution. And meanwhile, I'm going to go show you evidence of what's happening in our world. So it's important to know the history of what's really going on. You know how they say, follow the money. And unfortunately, in this case, it's really true. It's all about greed and money and power. So Fukushima and Taiwan, both plants, especially the first one in Jinshan, and the second one, Guoshen, each one with 2 nuclear reactors, so 4 nuclear reactors really close to where we live, Danshui, and close enough to just kill you here, was built by General Electric in the early 70s. And of course, since the early 60s, GE has been helping to spread the wonder of the atomic age after the nuclear bomb. Oh, it's a peaceful, very cheap, wonderful energy source. And so they were working on this image all over the world, in cartoons for children and everything. So, what's the deal here? Let's go to the next slide and see. Many engineers who were building these plants, especially the Fukushima plants, they said, you know, there's so many things in this plant that's substandard, dangerous. It's just a matter of time before we get a major accident. So these items need to be fixed immediately. This is what the CEO back then said. We're going to ram this nuclear thing through. In other words, he put profit before safety. He said no to these engineers, and many engineers, chief engineers, quit. One of these engineers is now a very vocal, very famous engineer who I recommend everybody to check out his talks on YouTube, and I'll show you his name later. He's very honest and tells you very easy to understand, clear, recent information on what's going on. He's been priceless in terms of information. So we know for sure that 3 out of the 4 reactors in Daiichi, which means number 1, exploded. And the 4th one, nobody really knows where the cores are, partial or full or what, they don't know. I will say this week, a Tokyo University scientist using the rays, certain rays from the sun, some new technology, and casting shadows upon the reactors, proved that there's nothing left inside the 1, 2, and 3. In other words, all the nuclear rods melted and went through all the safety holdings right through to the ground. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But this is what we know for sure, minimum damage. What does this mean? Only last month, I condensed an article by Taipei Times. Only last month, and this is very interesting because I don't know who invites these people, but they invited 1 nuclear engineer and 1 geophysicist. And basically, make a long story short, they said, sorry, but your plants are old, the safety mechanisms are all on the same circuit board, and once damaged by water, no electricity at all. So this is exactly what happened in Fukushima. The salt water came in and paralyzed the entire safety mechanism of the plant. And then, according to the faulty General Electric designs, the engineers said, no, we need the backup electrical engineers up high, at least 10 meters high. And this is what even last month these engineers are saying to Taiwan. No, these generators need to be at least 10 meters high. But no, these Taiwanese plants, exactly same Mark 1 model as Fukushima plants. And even the backup mechanism for electricity is the same as Fukushima. So, what are some of these design flaws? Well, one is that they said, no way will there be a tsunami bigger than 5 meters. No way. Well, they were totally wrong because the Fukushima tsunami was at least 15 meters high. Went right over everything. And I'm going to show you pictures of the plants here. In Taiwan, it's 4 meters high. I could actually figure out a way to climb up and go over. So that's one. And salt water was everywhere, which paralyzed the electricals. And then the diesels, which were the backup electricals, got washed away. So there is absolutely no electrical power at Fukushima. And without electrical power, nothing works, especially the cooling systems that must keep these hot rods cool. And of course, one after another, they melted down and went right through. We're going to talk about that. So what's a core meltdown? Core meltdown is, there was a movie about it in the 70s. It's the worst imaginable nightmare. And core meltdowns are about 2,700 degrees Celsius. And guess what? The entire casing can only handle up to 1,600 degrees Celsius. So of course it's going to melt right through. So there's another design flaw. At least three major design flaws that nobody fixed in Fukushima and nobody fixed here in Taiwan. So Megan and I went out to the nuclear plants. This is power plant number 1. The engineers from Japan last month said, you guys have no real evacuation plan. If a tsunami comes here and salt water gets into the plants, it'll explode like Fukushima. And where do people go from Taiwan? From Taipei, I mean. There's at least 5 million, maybe up to 7 million within 50 kilometers of us. And those people are in big trouble. That's us and their babies. So this is the official evacuation plan for nuclear number 1. Run that way 2.3 kilometers up the valley. Not even up the mountain. I'd go up the mountain at least. But they won't let you in. You can't get in there. And you can see by the height of those buildings, not so high, 4 or 5 meters. The waves, the ocean's right to the right. It'll come right over everything. Just this week also NHK, the Japanese broadcasting, had a special show on this fault line that actually goes straight into Hualien. That's why we always hear Hualien 6.8, Taipei 6.2, like we had last week. Well, it's a gigantic fault line. And in the past 300 years, there's been 3 gigantic tsunamis over, with earthquakes over 9.0, all of them. And the geologists dug deep in the island that's very near Taiwan. And they showed, well, here there's a giant tsunami. So every 100 to 150 years, there's a gigantic tsunami on that fault line, which runs into Taiwan. And the last one was 1777, about 140 something years ago. So what does that mean? That means we're due for a big one very soon. And you've probably heard about this. They're trying to cool the things that have melted already, and the water's coming out. Where do we put it? Well, half of it goes right in the ocean, and half of it they put in these gigantic tanks. 2 gigantic tanks a week. These tanks were just assembled like emergently. They're not earthquake proof. And this Fukushima still has little earthquakes like we have little earthquakes here. Every time there's a little earthquake, these guys, it leaks everywhere. And these kind of guys wearing these suits that really don't protect anything, knowing they're going to die. So mostly elderly and homeless. Go in 5 minutes at a time, and they've been seen using duct tape to tape the leaks coming out and trying to squeeze glue in the cracks of the cement. It's ridiculous. And this is what's happening right now. Nothing's happening. Oh, the engineers and doctors that went in earlier on in the beginning, nothing, no news about them. They're most likely dead from massive radiation poisoning. Now, when I was in Fukushima, you see stuff like this all over the place, like all over. It's really weird because it's either nothing, flat, or waste. I said, what kind of waste is that? Is it really that toxic here? And they said, no, look, you can check. You can check. And I checked and it was normal. Background radiation normal is 0.05 microsieverts per hour. Remember that number, 0.05. I just checked it with 2 of my Geiger counters. It was 0.15 today in this room. 3 times of background radiation. Why? We'll talk about that. So in review, the red ones, red dots, are the active nuclear reactors. There are 2 in each site. That's 6 active. And Longmen has been temporarily mothballed. But actually 1 reactor is already finished and ready to go, and the other one is almost ready to go. So actually they could be reactivated quite quickly. But the ones I really am worried about is the top 2, because it's right in our backyard. When those go off, there's nowhere to run or hide. No evacuation possibility. So I flew to Narita Airport, see on the bottom right, and I'm headed to that red dot on top, which is Sendai, just north of Fukushima. This whole northeast area was affected by the tsunami, and the nuclear reactors are right in the middle of that Fukushima coastline. So this is when I was landing at the in Narita. It was 1.05 microsieverts. And I told you what that means. That means it's 200 times of the regular background radiation level. 200 times. Tokyo right now is considered a massively contaminated toxic waste zone. Proven by random soil samples by the most famous physicist on earth, Dr. Gunderson. He went there, took random samples, sent them to America. They all came back as toxic waste. So this is another whole discussion. Why isn't Tokyo evacuated, number 1? And how ethical is it to have Olympics there in 2020? Those are completely another talk, but I will address them. So, how do I get to Fukushima? Boom! Direct bus to Fukushima. And I don't know why, but not many customers on the bus. So I got on the bus and boom, a few hours later I'm in Fukushima at the UN meeting. This is actually a really high security level meeting. There's only been 3 of these in the last 50 years. Emergency disaster meeting. The last one was in Kobe, my city, a long time ago, 1995 or something. So it was super high security because ISIS apparently called and said they're going to do something in Japan this week. So there were guards, armed guards everywhere, and like a 5 checkpoint, and I almost didn't get in. But somehow I got in, and I got to meet a lot of ministers and government representatives. And the sad thing was that nobody talked about nuclear issues. They talked about tsunamis, they talked about giant storms. It was a perfect venue for lots of poor little countries like Taiwan's friends, like Sao Tome and Nauru and Tuvalu and all these little islands that got affected by bad storms and their infrastructure completely destroyed. This was a venue where they can get up on stage in front of 186 ministers and prime ministers and beg for help. And it worked because many prime ministers got up there and said, we promised you $3 billion. And nothing about nuclear. And the minister from Jordan, who was an engineer, was the first guy to get up there and said something about, we gotta get serious right now about renewable energies. Energies of peace. Now, I love this, energies of peace. Because nuclear, yeah, it's a form of energy, but it's an energy of death. There's no other way to look at it. Nothing good about it. And he asked me to serve on a UN energy panel, which I gladly accepted. Do we have any Macedonians here tonight? Yeah, we always have at least 1 or 2 Macedonians, so I wanted to show the hot Macedonian ambassador to Japan. And she, amazing woman, she rebuilt Sendai from catastrophe to an amazing, beautiful, new, clean, sustainable energy city. Fantastic. And she's the mayor on the right that did that. Now, they have, booths, typical big international meeting, and most of it was NGOs begging for money. But the most interesting one was this, to me. Space technology, using satellites to predict and to assess disaster damage, be it storms, hurricanes, tsunamis, and the like. And I was really interested in this, and the head of JAXA, which is the NASA of Japan, was there. And I was talking to him in Japanese, and wow, this is so cool, how does this work? And where do you get all these satellites? Is it your rockets? You know? And they said, no, we get the satellites from Taiwan. I said, Taiwan? I said, but Taiwan is not invited here, and Taiwan satellites is not mentioned in any of the brochures. He says, well, yeah, we have to keep it low, that it's Taiwanese technology. And that's the kind of example of how UN treats Taiwan, thanks to China. I try not to be too political. So Fukushima is actually a beautiful place. You know, everybody thinks of it as a horrible place now, but there's cherry blossoms, plum blossoms, famous for food, seafood, and toxic waste dumps everywhere. And thanks to like our little community here in Taipei in Taiwan, there's a guy named, I think it's Ian Mackenzie, Ian something. And he introduced me to this woman, Yayoi, who just dropped what she was doing in her life and moved to Fukushima from Tokyo and dedicates her life to doing anything possible for the people. And the people think that she's either crazy, just a rich bitch who's just, you know, having fun, or you know, they can't figure it out. Why would you want to dedicate your life to us? Because most Fukushima people, like, they live like they have no hope. And because of her, she set up meetings with everything, mayor, business leaders, student leaders, fishermen leaders, and in a short time, in less than a week, I was able to meet all of them and network them and get things going. Now, journalists in Japan face prison time for telling any truth. Prison time, you know, what kind of a country is that? And Taiwan's not too far behind because you just never see anything in the media. I'm not just making this up. The reason why I stayed in Taiwan is because to help Taiwan's large AIDS problem. In 2004, 5, and 6, Taiwan had the worst increasing AIDS in the world. And I was helping with the AIDS orphans and giving talks everywhere about AIDS. In the media, you hardly saw anything about AIDS. So, kind of similar in Taiwan. You don't see too much about the truth. Just once in a while, you see a little bit. Well, some villages in Fukushima are in denial, and they're forcing their little kids in the school lunches to eat local food. They have no choice. And what happens to the kids after they eat the local food? Well, you go to the neighborhood radiation check center. Look at that little kid with his arms up. That's how he's going to grow up. Oh, I was checked for radiation every day. And you go to the seafood markets, there's nobody there. Big seafood markets. I was the only one there. It was kind of freaky. Now this is just a chart to show you that the trust, any trust that the Fukushima people had of the Japanese government and TEPCO is now gone, completely gone. Zero trust. Understandably, because the government's been making stuff up as they go along. The world standard for the background radiation, if there's such a thing as normal, but regular safety background radiation is 0.05 microsieverts per hour. You see the upper left, 0.06? That would mean 0.5 millisieverts per year. It used to be, that's the recommended maximum dose per person, 0.5 millisieverts per year. Well now, the government said, no, we'll change that. It's now 10 millisieverts per year is okay. And when I was in Fukushima, they're talking about jumping it to 20. So they're just making stuff as they go along. Now, as a doctor, this is, for me, touches me the most and is the most reprehensible, is that doctors are being threatened. Their careers are being threatened, and worse, if they tell any truth to the media or to the patient that, oh, you're dying of leukemia at age 30 because of radiation, or, sorry, your little child has thyroid cancer now because of radiation. If they say that, they lose their license, lose their hospital privileges, get kicked out of their community, and probably never practice medicine again. So the doctors are completely quiet. They can't talk, but they can talk to me because I look like a foreigner and I act like a foreigner. And they say, well, please don't say my name, but when you're overseas, tell the world what's really going on. Strange cancers, kids dying, pets dying, young people in their 30s dropping dead suddenly. Doesn't make sense. Young people dropping dead of heart attacks and strokes. Booming cemetery business. Would you like a special stone from India, or the cheap Chinese model? Discount today. Yeah. Cemetery sales everywhere. And many of the people have received a large sum of money for losing their livelihood, like so many fishermen can't fish. And their house, they've received money. Some people have gotten $1 million US. So I'm thinking, well, that's good, right? They can rebuild their lives. No, they're so depressed, living in a plastic shack, lost their livelihood, lost their manhood. They've become alcoholic. When I went to Iwaki, there are houses of what's called nuru-nuru, and bath houses, houses of prostitution, all over, on every block. Prostitution houses and bars and fancy cars like that, with no humans on the street. Very weird place, like a sci-fi movie. And also, of course, family violence, because the wives who have their kids and saying, let's get out of here. Our kids are being forced to eat lunches, and I want to get out of here. And the husband says, no, shut up, Violence, family violence everywhere. And wives with bruises on their face who won't come out to walk. It's really like a Holocaust movie. So that was doom and doom. But there's some good news. And people really working hard to improve the situation. And this guy, I call him Mr. Mushroom of Fukushima, because he was an industrialist making buildings and apartment houses and malls, and he's got all the money in the world. But what good was that when the people around him are just miserable? So he researched and found out that mushrooms eat radiation. So he said, this is what I gotta do. I gotta create clean, no nuclear, no contaminated mushrooms, and with that he makes shochu, which is Japanese vodka, from the mushrooms, and he makes noodles. It's getting to be the biggest mushroom factory in Japan. And also he does profit sharing, hires young people with no jobs, so they're all so happy. In other words, company makes money, bam, profit share, even if they're super young, 18, so they can fulfill their dreams and go overseas, college, whatever they want. It's wonderful. And you see in the upper left the shochu, vodka, and noodles, 2 kinds of noodles, and the shiitake. This is one really important way to detoxify ourselves, mushrooms. I encourage all of you to watch TED.com, Dr. Paul Stamets. Paul Stamets is the king of mushrooms, and he talks about 6 ways mushrooms will save the world. So, can Taiwanese people benefit from this? No, because they're banned. You can't bring them here. I did. I have it in my bag. If I get caught, there's going to be consequences. As a matter of fact, there's a little story 2 or 3 months ago where my friend in the police department told me, oh, by the way, there's a warrant for your arrest. Luckily, Taipei police chief is our good friend. He said, don't worry, I took care of it. I said, well, what happened? He says, well, you were at some market.
人類ははるか昔、本当の時を奪われたせいで五感が低下し、テレパシーだとか想念の力とか、今とは想像をはるかに超えた別の次元のクリエイティブなテクノロジーを失ってしまったんだよ。いつの時代も毒を持った悪い奴らがいて、その能力を独占するために偽物の時間を作り出し、物質に頼る文明を発達させるために破壊という科学を生み出して、戸惑う人々に対して自分たちの身勝手なへりくつを定義づけるために宗教を操り、その裏でエネルギーを牛耳って経済というお金のシステムを構築してきた代わりに偉大な能力を失ってしまった。何千年もかけて遺伝子的に記憶障害が起こり、何度も何度も生まれ変わって完全にその能力を忘れてしまった俺たちは記憶喪失なのだ。4次元の科学や哲学の話でファンタジーに興味のない人には面倒くさがられるけど、 まあ要するにお金を儲けるためにメディアを駆使し、人々をコントロールし、騙して自然を破壊し、無責任に危ないものをいっぱい作ってきた奴らが、自然を愛し自然を育んで自然と共に生活してきた人たちに長年にわたってものすごい苦痛を与えてきた事実が明らかになってくると、犠牲になってきた人たちの上に電気っていう暮らしがあるんだよ。そしてパンドラの箱の底を覗くと、太陽光発電だとか無限エネルギーだとか、自然を壊さなくても自然を利用した技術が発達してて、今は原発がなくても十分電気が賄える時代なんだよ。しかも低コストで。今ある原発を全て止めても水力火力をフル稼働するだけで賄えるんだよ。それを隠して騙す理由はものすごい利権が絡んでるのさ。金だよ金。末期的に気が狂ってるよこいつらは。原発1基作るのに1兆円ほどの援助金が国から電力会社に降りて、電力会社はターゲットを決めてその土地の人たちに近づいて金をばらまくんだよ。おっさんをキャバクラに連れてってお年寄りを温泉旅行、接待接待接待、街が復興するよなんて子供騙しな嘘ついて、反対派推進派に人々の心をお金で引き裂いてくマニュアルがあって、海を売った漁師に莫大な漁業権を支払って、安全対策やら危ない秘密の実験やらプロパガンダの広告費で莫大にかかってるそのお金はみんなの税金だよ。そうやって59基ある日本の原発は作られてきたんだよ。体に50個以上の時限爆弾をつけて生活してるのと同じで、1個でも爆発したらそこにはもう人が住めなくなるし、何にも生息できなくなってじわじわと汚染が広がっていく恐ろしいものが59個あるんだよ。嫌なイメージだけど、核の平和利用の名のもとに日本は核兵器を持ちたいがためにこれだけ強行して作ってきたんだよ。中国電力は山口県上関町の田野浦の美しい海岸を埋め立てて、これから日本最大級の原発を2基作ろうとしてて、その対岸に住む岩井島の人たちは30年も反対してやめてくれって言って生活をほっぽり出して必死に食い止めてきてるんだよ。豊かな自然とともにみんなそこにずっと住んで生活してるんだぜ。歴史もあって広大な自然が残ってる素晴らしいとこなんだぜ。そんなの全部無視して強行しようとしてるんだぜ。この後に及んで福島原発とはうちは関係ありませんって言って毎日工事してるよ。愚かだよね。この前地震があった静岡の浜岡原発も大丈夫って未だに止めてないし。何が大丈夫？はあ？お前の頭が大丈夫なのかよ。末期的に気が狂ってるし、宗教よりもきつい洗脳されてるっていうか、自分たちで安全安全ってほざいてきたその呪縛にかかってるよね。本当にバカ。でもそんなバカ野郎に騙されてきた俺たちもバカ野郎だし、完全に罠にはまってるよね。ツイッターやネットで原発の反対してる人の上げ足を取るようなレス多いけど、そんなやつほど薄っぺらく何にも実態分かってないし情けなくなるぜ。そんな君たちも原発を推進するなら、応援するなら、広島長崎の原爆、第五福竜丸の被爆、1953年国連で核の平和利用のキャンペーンが始まり、その裏でソビエトとアメリカが冷戦下で核開発を競い合って、読売新聞、読売テレビの正力松太郎を介してアメリカから日本に原発計画が進められ、ウランが渡ってきたとこから日本に原発が誕生し、今に至るまで知ってから話してくれよ。気持ちは変わると思うぜ。原発によって社会全体に影響してる負の連鎖なんて見えてきたら吐き気がしちゃうよ。